not internally calibrated. Because it was never designed to have that accountability from the federal government on top. Even so, it should have been a little better calibrated. Because a family who has a 3rd grader, a 6th grader, and an 8th grader, and this magic family that maybe always, whatever they do, they come on they get the 69th percentile, they'd have a kid who's needs improvement proficient and advanced. Doesn't make any sense. How you scored, I'll go quick, compared to every other child who scored just like you the year before, your academic peers. And the rate of change is expressed as a percentile. Now we get percentiles because what they're doing with the growth measure is they're saying, in 5th grade, we take all the children who scored at a 230, which would be a needs improvement, and we see how they score in 6th grade, and there'll be some students who go up to advanced, and that might be the top 2%. And then there'll be some students who score worse, and that might be the bottom percent. So your growth measure is comparing it to supposedly your peers. So we are getting these growth percentiles for students. The positive thing, so here's a picture of what it could look like. The positive aspect of this growth percentile is we can see change, positive change, and positive growth on the part of the student, even if they're still scoring needs improvement. They can score needs improvement as a 4th grader, and needs improvement again, and we can see that perhaps their growth is in the 75th percentile of all, compared to all the other kids who scored needs improvement. It seems to make sense, but there are a lot of questions about the validity of this for a number of reasons. First of all, it hasn't been, and these are the Department of Education's giving all these scenarios, which statisticians have figured out, but the challenge is what other factors factor into a student's test scores from year to year that have absolutely nothing to do with what's happening in the classroom itself. So, the factors that make poverty and parental education a factor in how a student scores the first time are still present when they take the test the second time. And so it's possible that a student scored low from a higher SES family on a particular test, but might grow the next year because they have a better year. But the student who is low SES is still going to have all those stressors. So my question is, have the studies been done? I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of studies on the fact that SES affects test scores. Have they been done on the fact of how they affect growth over time? So the unknown and the caution is, we don't know if this is a valid measure. So here's the Department of Education's scenario. Gina scored a 230 in grades 5, 6, and 7. And compared to her peers, she's on the 35th percentile of growth. Harry scored a 248, 248, 244. Those are all proficient. But he might be in the bottom quartile. And Ivy, who scored 214, that's a failure, and then needs improvement, might be in the 92nd percentile. So is this information valuable to schools? Yes. As a school, we can look at it and say, okay, we know our kids. And when we look at our kids that we do know, what have been the factors? Oh, well, we know that that child's family just went through a trauma. That's why he didn't score as well this year. And we know that this child's family, well, not a lot different happened in that family, but this year the growth went up. Oh, we introduced a new math program. The information will be very valuable to schools. My concern is it being So, you know, we look at growth, and I'm just going through the Department of Education has many slides and presentations. You can go online and look about the growth factor. It is useful. I've used it as a curriculum director to sit down with teachers and say, wow, this group of kids really did go up, even though there still needs improvement. What do you think happened? And teachers are pretty good about saying, you know what, those 4 kids got that intervention. It's useful. But for teacher evaluation, I am concerned. So this is what the department says, 40 to 60, as Dr. Bear said, that's average. 50 is average and 40 to 60 is the band of average. Students outside this range aren't typical, but differences of 10 SGP points are likely not educationally meaningful. Well, the people who take teacher evaluation and fine grain it understand that. The 10 points aren't even meaningful because of the human variance. So that's one concern. But let's go on. Here's another concern, 10th grade. There is no 9th grade MCAS. There is no 9th grade test. So due to the extra year, we have to keep in mind that it's representing 2 years' growth. So is it the 10th grade teacher's responsibility? What if in 9th grade, the kids played chess all year and didn't do anything? So now it's the 10th grade. Will the 10th grade teacher have responsibility for now 2 years of growth that they can't control who the 9th grade teacher has? So that's part of the concern. Also, 10th grade student growth percentiles vary more. This is right out of the Department of Education. A large majority of 10th graders reach proficient. That's because it's easier to be proficient in 10th grade. The test isn't as difficult normally. That's another thing that people don't generally know. The most difficult tests to reach proficient are not in 10th grade. So the kids are concentrated at the top of the scale, and differentiating is challenging. So that's right out of the Department of Education. And this is all Department of Education. It's important to keep in mind that growth percentile is useful to the extent it's simply another piece of data. And their words, there's a story behind every student growth percentile, and educators are encouraged to seek out those stories, not be bashed on the head with them. So this is Department of Ed. Now let's look a little bit outside of the Department of Education. National Summit on Educator Effectiveness in April. It's a federally funded partnership with the U.S. Department of Education, Vanderbilt, University, etc., looking at these value-added models, what the growth percentile is. And of course, the ultimate goal of all evaluation should be improved learning, improved teaching and learning. We agree to that. Everybody agrees to that. And then race to the top. See, what Massachusetts is under this federal mandate that race to the top is now defining what effective teachers are. So because we have signed on to that, an effective teacher is defined by race to the top as students achieve acceptable levels, at least one grade level in an academic year of student growth, as defined. And that there must be multiple measures. I applaud that, multiple measures. My concern is what role will the SGP play? Because it's a number, quantifiable measures, that it's a number, tend to take on greater importance because people understand what a number means. So, and what highly effective teachers. So this is what our Department of Education is under the race to the top definition. What does student achievement mean? There are federal definitions now. But now we have non-tested groups of subjects. And I love this cartoon. For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So this is the reality in any given classroom. We have students who come to us with different backgrounds, abilities, etc. So we're all going to be having the same test because now cohort, Park, if they win the contract, an organization that is looking at these new standards that indeed are rigorous, and will be designing an assessment that now, my understanding, will be across all the school, states that have signed on to this, signed on to Park. This is the other concern. 69% of teachers can't be assessed with this because there are subject areas that aren't tested. There's no art test. There's no French test. There's no chemistry. And there are teachers on grade levels where there's no prior test scores. Under this particular new law, I, if I were an elementary teacher, would rush to teach 3rd grade. There's no growth measure. That's the first time they take the test. And if I were a 4th grade teacher, I would pray that the 3rd grade teacher was really weak, because my test scores, growth will look really good. In fact, you're going to clamor to get the grade level, post the grade level, that doesn't have strong teachers. So it's going to pit teachers against one another a little bit. And there's also questions about the validity of measuring special ed teachers. How are they going to be measured? Those are kids with learning disabilities. Is their growth going to be the same as a child who doesn't have a learning disability? Or an English language learner. When you look at those schools on the list of the underperforming schools, they have high populations of English language learners. Now, I know a little French, but I wouldn't want to take a standardized test in French, or Chinese, or Korean. You know, so this is some of the challenges. There's also limitations to standardized tests, no matter how well designed. Tests don't capture all the important aspects of growth. How much a student learns to love reading isn't measured by a standardized test. And we have to ask, is there any evidence that using these kind of measures contribute to teachers' understanding of their students? It's new. One of the things that Dr. Baird talked about is this emerging research on giving student opinion about teachers. It makes me really uneasy that we might be basing a legislated teacher evaluation system on emerging research. I mean, they're still looking at the studies. So it makes me uneasy as a school administrator. There are an advance. I welcome them as an educator. I welcome these student growth percentiles. They have given us much information for rich discussion with teachers. But I would never want to base a teacher's evaluation for so many reasons. We need to be cautious and advised against their application for evaluating teachers. The National Academy of Sciences Boards on Testing Assessment says a great deal is unknown about the potential and limitations of alternative statistical models for evaluating teachers' value-added contributions, and they agree with other experts who have urged the need for caution and for further research prior to any large-scale, high-stakes reliance on these. Again, are they valuable? Yes. But can we use them for teacher evaluation? We don't know yet, and it's about to happen to us. So I am very, very concerned.